Hello and welcome to this series in which I will be reviewing some of the major course themes over the different units in English 333, History of the Book. In these reflections, what I wanted to do was to look at kind of four major questions I pulled from the course that to me kind of encapsulate a lot of the topics we looked at, and kind of just answer those questions or use those questions as a source of reflection for each unit of the 5 units. And these aren't necessarily going to be incredibly formal, and they're more just me kind of reflecting over some of these topics and looking at what we explored in that unit, just as a space to reflect back on the course as a whole. So for our first unit, which would be before print, and I'll clarify each little animation I've done for each section. For this section, I chose to do a quill writing on parchment to I felt like parchment was such a massive part of this unit, and the idea of pre-paper, here pre-rag paper, forms of writing, and the different specific qualities of parchment. And so and also just the process of being of handwriting texts versus printing. So I wanted to include our little animation here of a quill writing on parchment. So the 4 questions I've determined to kind of guide my thoughts for this course are, firstly, who is printing and how are they represented in their products? Who is reading and what do books mean to them as objects? How do we interact with historical book objects and how do we read them as modern readers? And how do we imagine print history and what are the terms on which we approach it? So for our first question, which is who is printing and how are they represented in their products, I wanted to talk about one aspect of this unit that I found really interesting, which is actually something I've already mentioned, which is kind of the importance of parchment or vellum in early kind of text product. And I was just thinking while I was reflecting over my notes from this unit on the section in which we looked at kind of the process of making parchment and the different the process of turning the sheepskin into the parchment. I was just laughing because I kept thinking about the statement of how books will go sheep shape again, and I think that sheep shape is a very funny phrase. But to add on to that, it's just this idea that I thought it was so interesting how close different industries were. Something we talked about is that monasteries that would be making vellum or parchment for writing manuscripts on would also be producing lots of meat and wool and leather. And I think that's really interesting, that a lot of these resources were kind of centralized and kind of inextricably tied to not print culture yet, but kind of textual culture, writing culture, manuscript culture here. And I think it's really interesting as we see throughout the course the kind of connection between different people and different industries tied into text, and it's never separable from the rest of the world. Text production never exists in a vacuum. It's always deeply tied into the systems of the period and the place, and it's just very interesting to me. For the question of who is reading and what do books mean to them as objects, one of the areas or one of the topics from this unit that was really interesting to me on this question was when we discussed scriptio continuum. I don't know if I'm entirely pronouncing that right. I don't have any good Latin skills, but I was just thinking about how we talked in class about how this form of writing in which all the words are pressed together without any kind of punctuation or even spaces assumes you've already know the text in order to read it. And so its form is informed by the fact that the reader and writer know what it says. And I just think that's really interesting because one of the aspects that stood out to me the entire course was just this idea of how the form of the text, the physical qualities of it, tell you about how people were reading it and how people were using it, because I think it really ties into that idea of what do these texts mean to people as objects. Kind of material culture shows you how people were using them, and the idea of books being not just read but used is very interesting to me. And I think that this idea that scriptio continuum requires the reader to know what is said there already, so it becomes more of a physical symbol of the text rather than a legible text itself, I think is quite significant, and just really stood out to me in this section about this question of who are readers in this period, in this pre-print period. like we see that readers are not inherently people who want to just read. It's much more complicated than that, and that you would have to already know the text in order to read, which I think is quite different than how we think about readership today. And something that also kind of ties into that, but more builds off of it, is the fact that when we looked at Old English glosses above Latin words in manuscripts, and I think it's really this is like really quite compelling for this topic because of the idea of like the shift from all text being in Latin or another classic language to being in vernacular languages, which we obviously don't see entirely here. We'll see the shift later into vernacular Bibles, for example. But I think that this idea that like it shows the kind of like the importance of like locality in text production or readership too, that people were having to write their glosses above the Latin words. Kind of it shows the impact of the different locations in which the texts were existing in on text themselves and how they were shifting to meet people's needs. Because even though in the Scripto Continuum example I talked about how like kind of those books don't need people's interaction with them necessarily because people already know the text, so it's kind of there either as like a memory aid or it's there as like a physical symbol of the text. The idea of vernacular glosses above Latin words is like the exact opposite. It shows people really trying to use the words, use the text, and both for sharing with others, like it would be like in a Bible for like preaching, or for one's own like study of the text. Next question that I want to look at is this idea of how do we interact with historical book objects and how do we read them as modern readers. And I think this is just like one of the really central questions of this course. And I was thinking about how in one of our classes, I don't remember who it was, but one of my classmates asked a question about how do we learn to translate or interpret these older texts if they're in a language that we don't have a modern representation of. And we looked at how texts that were in different languages, where you'd see like a language that perhaps we don't have anymore next to a language that we do have or have something similar to, and that allows for translation. For example, like I feel like the kind of classic example of that is like the Rosetta Stone, which is obviously something we looked at in class, and how that's helped us interpret. But I couldn't help but think about how it's so interesting how like without the Rosetta Stone, using that example, like we wouldn't have any idea what I believe that was to help us understand Egyptian hieroglyphics. We would have no idea what those said, and it would still be a mystery perhaps. And it's so interesting that there's like so much kind of mystery still out there, and it's just by chance of, it reminds me of, I spent a summer doing archaeology in Virginia, and there's so much that can be found by archaeology, right? But there's also so much, it's only by chance of what was left on the ground, what got put in the trash, and what's survived through different like tillings of fields and such, that allows us to know things. And you think of all the wealth of stuff we still don't know. And it reminds me of when we were talking about this in class, someone brought up the Voynich manuscript, which we still don't understand. And I thought that was very funny because I had watched a TED Ed video on the Voynich manuscript like about a year ago, and it was just wild. So I just thought that was like a important point in terms of this question of how do we interact with like historical book objects, of this question like how much do we still not understand, or how do we find out these things, or like what was it like before we could understand these texts, and what did people ever think that these texts would be able to be translated. And then finally, for my final question of how do we imagine print history and what are the terms in which we approach it, I wanted to bring up the eventual shift that happens at the very end of this unit, more into the next unit, from manuscript and on parchment, codexes, etc., to the shift from that to books and print culture. And it's just really interesting because one of the things I'm going to end up talking about in a lot of these reflections, I think, is the fact that people feel so resistant right now to the idea of shifting from print culture to digital culture, and see it as this like absolute betrayal of print culture in some way, or that it's ruining books or something like that, or that both can't coexist. And I think it's really interesting to look at these times of transition between other forms of the book, because something we've looked at in this class is how much the book or the manuscript, etc., has changed over the course of its history. And I was thinking of just things that have been lost in different kind of modes of reading, of text production. And I was thinking about the idea of the palimpsest, this idea that that you could scrape off the your, I don't know if ink would be the right word, but you could scrape off your ink writing off of the parchment, because the parchment is so much more durable than say a paper, and so you could scrape it off and reuse it. And I think that's really interesting, because that's definitely not a quality we see continued as and this seems like such a key quality of this type of writing, that you could write over and over again on the same piece. And it's so interesting because it actually kind of reminds me of digital culture, as far away as the two are from each other, because while in print, in many of its different forms, from printing, like mass printing on printing presses, or even the invention of the typewriter for personal text production, don't really allow you to really go back and change things very easily. Whereas obviously palimpsest is a very it's a process that requires a lot of work, and it doesn't leave the parchment totally clean, but it's definitely, it feels less permanent than what you would do with a printing press. And in that way, it kind of reminds me of digital, in that digital is very reversible, perhaps. So it would be the farthest along on this spectrum, with this palimpsest kind of situation being the kind of next in line. It's just interesting to me to see some things that have gone away or come back in terms of how we interpret text. What are the medium qualities of text is just really fascinating, especially as we look at these different times of transition. So I've answered my 4 questions that I think kind of guide my thinking, at least, on this course for the period of before print. In the next video or audio recording, we'll be looking at the coming of print and what does early printing look like. So I will be back to discuss that later.